So example 2 in your booklet is to do with deseasonalising data for more than 1 year. So the sales data we have this time is quarterly data taken over 3 separate years. So when the time series plot has been graphed, you can see there's real seasonality happening here. There's a peak at quarter 3 and another one at quarter 7 and another one in quarter 11. There's also 3 troughs, and they're happening at equally spaced time increments as well. So there's a trough at quarter 4, another trough at quarter 8, and another trough at quarter 12. So it's pretty obvious what's happening there. There's some seasonal fluctuations there. So if you were describing it, that's what you would have to talk about. To do the calculations for the deseasonalising this data, we need to first start off by finding an average for each particular year. So adding the 4 sales data for each year and then dividing by 4. So as you do that, you'll get a value for each particular year. 923 for that one, 1028 for that one, and 1183 for that one. So as you add the 4 pieces of data and then divide by 4 to get an average, hopefully your calculations will be the same as mine there. You're going to use those averages then to help you to calculate proportions for each quarterly figure. So you're starting off with the original value, dividing it by the average for that particular year. So you'll see the first line's been worked out for you. The second line, you're going to be using the average for the second year and calculating your proportions that way, and so on and so on and so on. And the third year, you're going to be using the seasonal average for that particular year and calculating those proportions accordingly. So as you calculate all of those, I'm not going to obviously do all the calculations there, but so you've got the answers there, I'll quickly write those in so you know what you should be getting when you do the calculations. And hopefully I would be expecting you not just copy these into your booklet, but to actually do the calculations and check that they're correct. And so you'll end up with 12 proportions once you've done your 12 calculations. Let's hurry up with those. 0.557 on that one. So once you've done those, you're going to be using those proportions then to calculate the seasonal index. So now you've got 12 different proportions. You're going to be working down the columns this time and figuring out the average for autumn, the average for winter, the average for spring. And those averages are the seasonal indices for those particular seasons. So the winter and the spring seasonal indices should be that if you do the calculations. And again, if I was asking you to interpret those calculations, summer sales are generally 3% above average sales. Autumn sales are generally 15% above average. Winter, generally 30% above average. And for spring, obviously below average, so you're talking 48% generally below average sales for that particular season. So as you flip over then, one last little calculation to do, and that is to divide each bit of actual data by its corresponding seasonal index and calculate the deseasonalised figures. So you can see what's happening there. Each one of those original pieces of data is being divided by the corresponding seasonal index for each particular season. 115 for autumn, 1.03 for summer, and 0.52 for spring. So as you do those and do the calculations, again, I'm not going to just sit here and let you watch me just do all the calculations, but I'll quickly write in the values so that you know what they should be. So as you do your calculations, these should be the figures you're getting. So make sure you check and you can see how I've got those. 1043 and 1151. So again, you can fill in those details properly. What you do need to do then to get this sort of smoothed plot onto your calculator, you need to put those 12 values onto your calculator. So what your calculator screen will look like, it'll have one list on a spreadsheet for which quarter we're talking about, one list for the actual sales, and then one list for your deseasonalised sales. So when you go to put them onto a plot there, again, quarter obviously is the explanatory variable. Sales are going to be the response variable. When you, oops, that's what I meant to do. When you go into your plot properties to connect your dots to make your time series plot visible, you can see that's your original very jagged, very seasonal plot. We're going to then menu, plot properties, add the Y variable, and we're going to put in the deseasonalised data now. Much, much, much smoother. Still a little bit of an odd value down there at Q4, so that's a particularly bad quarter, and a bit of an odd one at quarter number 9. That's quite a good month for sales. So there's still two sort of things that you would need to discuss if you were now saying, I can now see this underlying trend. There is a little bit of an upward trend, but you'd have to also mention something about quarter 9 and something about Q4 because there's something odd happening in those two quarters. We then want to get our regression line for our deseasonalised data. So there we have it. So that's where on the next page, on page 27 of your booklet, you can see the equations written there on the booklet. So again, you need to make sure that you're using the correct variables for your equations. So you can see there that the actual, the deseasonalised sales equal to 838 plus 32.1 times the time period. So that's important to get that right. Then you can use that equation to make your predictions. So again, if you're looking for winter in the year 2000, then you need to figure out which time period that is. It's going to be time period number 15, and then subbing 15 into your equation, you get a deseasonalised figure here, and then obviously you're not going to leave it as a deseasonalised figure, but you're going to then make that reseasonalise it and make it back into an actual figure, and you will do that by multiplying by the seasonal index for winter. So that's basically it in a nutshell, being able to do it for 1 year, example 1, and then example 2 is how you do it for more than 1 year.